Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchins.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter in the western states of the United States, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. All in all, if you're hunting out west in 2018, GoHunt.com Insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Hey, Eli was on the show a month or so ago, and he sent me an email, called me up, and said, hey, I want to talk more about Whitetail Underground and what that really means to me. So that's how we're going to start the show off. Eli Gesell is from north central Minnesota, and he is one heck of a swamp buck hunter, and he'll talk about those stories coming up. So, Eli, welcome back to the show, and let's just start right where you want to start the show off with Whitetail Underground. Let's talk about how it began, what it offers, and why people should take a look at it.
Well, it began as me not wanting to ever look back and say, I wish I would have tried to turn something that I'm passionate into a career. There's a couple of things in my life that I kind of look back and say, what if, and why didn't you try? And I didn't want this to be one of those things. In 2015, I almost died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and that's kind of what really fueled the drive to want to try and make this work. And the name Whitetail Underground comes from, I feel like what's represented in hunting media is not normal for everybody, and what you can watch, nobody really has. So like the underground part of hunting is what everybody's able to do. We don't all have big tracts of land. We all can't hunt highly managed properties. Most of us are on public land and small parcels that we have permission on for free, no big leases. And that's why I chose that name. I thought that I could put out some material that's relatable to people, share some stories that I have from home here, and hopefully that people would follow along, and I can maybe turn this into something bigger someday. So
the background was you just wanted to have your own reality show on your blog, if I heard you right.
Well, I don't know if reality show, the way reality shows are looked at is maybe the right term, but just to be able to maybe do some freelance writing and have some video content that I'm able to put out, and maybe turn that into a full-time gig.
Yeah, what I meant by that, you're keeping it real. So not with the drama of The Bachelor or any of that, but just, okay, guys, here it is, right, down and dirty. Here's what I have to do. Here's walking in at 4:30 in the morning, and here's how I have to put up my steps, blah, 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 blah. So here's the real deal. It isn't like, I've got, farms that are groom farms, what I call groom farms. Some people are fortunate to hunt groom farms where, there's trails all over. There's food plots right to their tree stand. I mean, everything. And it's very well set up, and they kill a lot of deer. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but a lot of us don't have that ability, one, money, two, of time, and three, we don't own the land. We're guests. The farm I hunt, I'm a guest. And I do a little bit here, do a little bit there, try to put in some kill plots, but or put in some kill plots. But other than that, it's a corn and bean farm with some alfalfa. And alfalfa's for his cattle and his cows, and the corn's for the cows, and the beans. He sells off his beans. But having said that, I'm a guest, and even if we're on public land, we're guests. So let's just go back and talk about where you want Whitetail Underground to go. How are you going to make it grow?
Well, I want it to end up at someday to where it's what I do for a job. I don't want it to feel like a job. I think that if it turns into feeling like a job, I failed along the way at some point. It's just something I'm passionate about, and hopefully the content that I put out is relatable to enough people, and just me being myself and a normal guy in my 30s that I'm able to grow it just by being myself.
How do you plan to grow it? If somebody, wants to ask you, questions, how do you interact with people?
I'm on social media quite a bit. If anybody asks me any questions, I try and respond as soon as I can. I have daily questions I ask on Facebook, and we interact with quite a few people each day. And the last, I would say 3-4 months, I've had a big uptick in interaction with a lot of people. The Facebook page is starting to pick up. The YouTube page has picked up a fair amount of subscribers in the last 10 to 20 days, actually, more than I had kind of anticipated in this short little time.
So how do people find you on Facebook and on YouTube and Instagram?
YouTube is Whitetail Underground Productions. I'm at Whitetail _ on Instagram. And then if you search Whitetail Underground, it should come up on Facebook.
So it's Whitetail _ on Instagram. Is that correct?
Whitetail _ Underground on Instagram. Yep.
Okay, so folks, reach out to that, and Eli wants to hear. He wants to grow your business, your knowledge of whitetails, and he wants to grow his business. We can do that if he interacts and develops some relationships with you guys and gals. What type of questions are people asking you?
There's a lot of just kind of tactical questions, and a lot of things stem off a question that I asked. Yesterday, I asked a question about what is your biggest weakness as a hunter? And with people just responding to that spurs other questions that people answer each other, and I talk back and forth with, and it's just a kind of a fun way to interact with people around the country. And I feel that we grow as a community like that when we can have good conversation with each other about especially stuff like a weakness. If you can turn a weakness into a strength, you're just going to become that much better and more efficient of a hunter.
For you to become a better hunter, what do you have to do?
I think we have to look at each situation that happens in the woods and try and figure out why it happened. If you see a mature buck moving across the landscape, you got to try to figure out where he's moving to, why he's moving, and where he come from. So if it takes getting down and finding where that buck was bedded, that's something that we got to do. You always have to be learning at all times and never pass anything off as chance or forget about something that happened. We always have to try and figure out why.
One thing I learned the other day from one of the guests, I think it was Fred Eichler, and if it wasn't Fred, I apologize. But so you're long distance scouting, you'd see a buck come out, and and you watch him go over the hill. So that's a perfect time to backtrack him and go find his bedding area because he's not there. Guaranteed he's not
Absolutely.
there. And the probability of another buck being in his bed or bedding area is slim. It could happen. You see him out in the field, bachelor
Right.
groups, July and August. It happens, but they're out together. So you might say, okay, they're bedding in the same general area. But typically, if one buck's out during the summertime, they're all out. So you go back, and then you can find, and you just won't find one bed. You'll find a series of beds within, an acre. It's not going to be a big, large area, depending on the terrain. Now, if you're in Kansas and some things, it's a little bit different, but I'm talking Wisconsin, Iowa, Kentucky, Ohio, Missouri. We have really good cover. And so that's one trick you can see and say, okay, this is where he's coming from. So you're completely away from him. You just let the deer go. And, the second part of that, once you find the bedding area and get that posted down, you stay the heck out of there. And then you watch him and you get back on his feeding routes or feeding patterns. And there's something to be said about that. What do you think about that suggestion?
No, that's kind of exactly what I was alluding to. Once you pinpoint where that bed is, you're able to locate their exit routes too, whether it's to water or maybe they're getting up to move because the wind switched and they don't like where they're at. They don't have a wind advantage, and there's maybe an exit trail to a spot there, or they're to feeding. And once you find them exit trails and the food source or a secondary bedding area that they like on a pretty common wind, that's stuff that we can find, pinpoint trees that we can set up in during the hunting season. I actually have a couple of trips planned out to the public land that I hunt quite a bit. I'm going to do a couple of observation sits here, probably the last week of July, maybe first week of August before our season gets rolling here in Minnesota. And hopefully I can pick up on some of that early season movement then.
Key phrase, observation sits for deer hunting. If you're a deer hunter, it isn't all about just getting your rifle the Wednesday before opening, go to the range, go to your backyard, shoot a couple shells, get packed up, and go to the cabin. And I said that wrong. It could be that that's your hunt. And if that's your hunt, the hunting tradition, you hunt the 9 days, 5 days, whatever your season is, and you have a great time at the cabin, that's great. There are some of us that we do that, plus we're 365-day hunters. So there's a difference in the show, and somebody brought this up the other day. He said, Bruce, everybody's not as insane as you are about hunting white-tailed deer, nor your guests. And I said, I get it. So if you're that person that takes a rifle out one time a year and goes hunting and has a great time at camp, tells stories and has a great time, then that's as worthwhile to anybody because you're hunting. And I salute you for that. You won't hear a lot of stories about that because the people I'm talking to are 365, 24/7 deer hunters. We're pretty much insane or passionate, whatever you want to call it. We're focused to figuring out, okay, how do I figure out this deer? How do I get this deer? What do I have to do to get in that deer's head? So I have a choice of harvesting him, killing him, putting him on the ground and eating him or not. That's kind of my thought. What's your thought on what I just said?
Well, I agree with it 100%. If you're a strictly a gun hunter that goes up to the family cabin, that's some of the best camaraderie that you're ever going to be around. That's where a lot of us started. We don't have a hunting cabin, but the family rifle hunting when I was a kid is some of the best memories that I've ever had. But it's turned into something that's consumed me. I get caught at work thinking about bedding areas and transition routes and stand setups and what I need to do yet. And it's June 13th, and I'm scared for September 15th when our archery season opens up because I'm not ready. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with every point you brought up.
And thanks for that. And, this series, everything I'm doing right now is for prepping and getting ready. What are some of the other things that you're doing so when you hit opening morning, you're ready. So you're confident and you're ready to go.
I'm still scouting, like we kind of talked about last time. That's the key, especially to the style of hunting that I've kind of adopted here in the last 18 months to 2 years. Trying to shoot my bow every day. I got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old that play baseball, and we're kind of running around the countryside right now, 5, 6, 7, 8 games a week, and that kind of limits my time. But shooting my bow all the time, and then just going over my gear, making sure I got my boots are good, making sure my stand setup's good and quiet, covering anything that's making any noise, maybe replacing bolts, doing a lot of scouting on the computer, trying to find new public areas that I can get to, and running trail cameras at the farms that I have permission to hunt at, and running mineral. That's one thing too that helps with them cameras, gets them deer in front of them cameras quite a bit, and just always trying to learn something, whether it's something to do with my gear or with the deer that we pursue. Trying to learn something every day. Excuse me.
You mentioned something about playing baseball and going here and going there. For what it's worth, throw this out. When you're just sitting there in the stands and talking to all the parents, people that you don't know and everything, somehow wind it around and say, anybody around here deer hunt? I mean, really love to archery hunt and see what they say, because I bet you every single game there's that one person, if you could get to them, they're as crazy about it as you are, and maybe you could develop a relationship. Just a thought.
Yeah, there's a good possibility. The community that I live in, it's pretty small, and there's a lot of hunters here. So I wouldn't doubt that something could spur from a conversation like that at one of those games.
Yeah, even if you just start talking people up and say, hey, I love the archery hunt. I want to meet some guys and gals who love the archery hunt. Brought some beer at the house. Next Saturday, you're welcome to come over and we'll celebrate, the kids' baseball season or whatever. Because you mentioned about the tradition, the hunting tradition, especially in Wisconsin, 9-day season. That's, the stump sitters created deer and deer hunting. I mean, it's legends. Things have made legends in the stories that have come out from the upper peninsula, the Upers, and the upper Wisconsin. I mean, it's just it's unbelievable. I know I sat in these tiny cabins, and you wouldn't believe the people that I met there, and they were no different than the rest of us. But they were, businessmen in the state, but they just, even some football players. They just loved whitetail hunting, and they were off doing what they could do for one day or the whole season. It didn't matter. And I miss that, because the way I hunt now, and I hunt so many places, you blast in and you blast out, and you really don't have the home core we do in Wisconsin as the bunkhouse crew, but we're getting older, and it's harder. It really is. And so building community, folks, is really important. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. When we look at being a student of whitetails, and I mentioned to you in the warm up, QGMA Deer One Steward program I went through and passed with directed under Clemson University. So it's a real course, folks. It's like going to night school or whatever. But I learned things there that I never knew about whitetail deer. Not a thing. Not a thing. And one thing that is really shown is their deer are colorblind. No, they're not. They see blues really well, and blues turn into whites, and whites in the middle of the night scare the crap out of them. Plus, if you wear blue jeans, and use brighteners on them, you glow in the dark. You actually glow in the dark. You look like you're a ghost walking through the dark. So if a deer sees this ghost walking through the dark, do you think they're going to stick around? Nope. And so it's just little things like that. Did you know about UV rays and brighteners and blue hues?
I guess I've known that they can see the UV rays and stuff, but nobody put it into terms, I guess, that I could understand, like what you just did. I know that there was a product that was advertised in like Field and Stream and Outdoor Life that was a UV blocker. I never purchased any because I guess it's one of them things that you read about or hear about and you just kind of maybe pass it off as BS.
Yeah, well, here's to tell you, after doing it, and there's a lot of companies out there. There's Atco. They may also make Snow Seal, Pure One, UV killers. And folks, if you have any blue hues in your gear, your hat, your face mask, your pants, your gloves, anything, you are a walking billboard for a whitetail deer. If you put up blue tape to mark your exit, entrance, anything, take that blue tape down. Blue flagging tape, surveyor's tape, is not your friend in the woods. It's a sign. Go away. Humans are here. This is a big white stripe like a neon sign. It's just I went to my property and I walked it, and we had some blue surveyor tape up right at crossing where they're coming through the fence. I'm going, holy right. So it went away. So those are the things you learn by a student. What are some of the things that you've learned by a student? Because I got to be quiet. I've been talking a lot tonight.
Oh, that's fine. I guess I don't understand the question,
No,
Bruce. I'm sorry.
what are some of the things that you've learned about white-tailed deer where it wants you to become more and more of a student, not just a hunter, but a student of the deer?
I got it. Just how they always use the wind, and they're not doing anything by chance. There's always a reason behind anything that they're doing. That the way the thermals roll through the land, and the reason that the trails are where they're at is because those deer are using the thermals to be able to see and smell anything from a couple different directions, especially in like real hilly terrain or bluff country like the Buffalo County, Wisconsin area and the Rochester, Minnesota area. Like in the morning when the thermals are rising and a wind is coming over the top of a hill, they're able to smell things from two different directions as they're headed at the top 1/3 of a hill. That's something that I've learned here in the last couple of years, and something that I would never ever would have dreamt of thinking about until I really tried to up my knowledge level.
Here's a hot special for all Whitetail Rendezvous listeners. The Hunting Buddy app is giving away an all expenses paid free-range whitetail hunt at ABC New York Ranch this fall. You'll be hunting with NASCAR driver Spencer Boyd and the Hunting Buddy team, all the while being filmed by a professional film crew from Rush Outdoors, as seen on the Pursuit channel. To enter the contest for free, go to huntingbuddyApp.com. Click the huge Hunt Giveaway section tab and download the app. When you upgrade to the Outfitter plan, you get 30 additional giveaway entries. Hunting Buddy app is your best choice for staying safe in the woods with their patent-pending safety notification system. So lunar information including peak game, activity times, current and future weather forecasts, land ownership, hunting waypoints, group hunting, and so much more, all for free from Hunting Buddy app. That's HUNT_N BUDDY app.
To be able to get in front of more of these mature animals.
Some people sit on water holes, and one thing about water holes, especially if you're out west hunting antelope, the wind bounces because water holes are stock tanks. You know, it's a tank that's down, so the wind's coming across the prairie, hits the brim or the berm, and then bounces, and so it can go right over the head of the game you're trying to get. You know, and a guy, I said, really? He said, yeah, that's why you can be set up here and you don't have to be set up here, but you shouldn't set up there because this is what's going to happen. And I'm going, holy right. So, you know, paying attention to when, you know, we all know it, you know, keep the wind in your face, but you're hunting in the mountains as I do, you're sometimes screwed because the wind's so squirrely. But typically in the Midwestern states, it's not as drastic, but it's still, you still have to play the wind because you can be out there butt naked. Not to say you would, but with no camo on, okay, let's just say jeans and a plaid shirt, and play the wind right, and you can kill a deer.
Right. Yep. And something that Dan Info talks about a lot, going back to your water tank comment, is here in the Midwest, when it's calm and that water is warmed up, it's actually going to push your scent in areas where you wouldn't think about it, too. So if you're set up on a water hole, you have to be set up in the right tree to where your wind's not going to go to where those deer are coming out to water. It's something that I would have never, ever thought of until I watched a video that he put together, and he's up in a stand and he's dropping milkweed, and that water's actually sucking his scent against the wind. The thermal was so strong from the water.
You're a big student of Dan Infel, aren't you?
Yeah, I can't get enough of Dan's thought process and how he's able to get stuff done. Mostly, I think, because he does it on public land where everybody else has a chance to do the same thing. And he's still able to out-hunt everybody around him.
So if you had to say the top 3 things that you've learned from reading his stuff or watching the videos, what would it be?
The thermals part of it is a big thing. How to look for overlooked areas, and a lot of times it's not going in deeper than a lot of people, but to pay attention to things that most people would just pass off as something that doesn't look like it's going to hold deer. And then another thing is that you just always need to be paying attention to the wind and the scent control thing. A lot of it's just kind of BS. Stuff that's really good at separating people from their money, but not very good at putting deer in the back of the truck.
Now, how do you spell Dan's name?
His last name is Infalt, Infalt, and he runs a site called the Hunting Beast Forum, and it's full of a bunch of guys that are hunting public land and using his style of locating buck bedding and ambushing them out of that bed.
Well, folks, we're going to go right now. You're sharing Chrome. Go back to application one. Yeah. Stop sharing. I don't want to go there. Share screen. How do I share my screen here? I'm going to try to find this. Okay, Firefox. They're sharing. Okay. That didn't work, did it? I was trying to find his place for you, folks. To share it. That did not work out good for me. I wonder why. Let me try one more thing. A little silence where I do some technical working. Dan Infalt, deer hunting, how to kill the biggest buck on the thing. Okay, we get that. And let's share screen again, see what we got. Firefox. Can you see that?
I can see your mouse, but it's just a blue screen right now.
Okay, how to kill the biggest buck you hunt, where you hunt, Dan Infalt. You're sharing Firefox.
No, I can see your mouse moving around.
Yeah, it's not working. Okay, we'll have to work on that. But Dan Infalt, Infalt, he's well known, folks, and he's worth the time. And any people are. I'm in the Steve Rinella right now, Meat Eaters. I just ordered his book, the Buffalo American Icon, and fascinating book about how the bison actually kept everything on the prairie working, and through food plots and just everything they did, it all worked together. And that's one thing about hunting. We have to get into the rhythm of the hunt. We have to get in the rhythm of the woods. You can't just go in there and rip and snort and kill deer. We used to do that back in the day driving, and that worked. And we killed a lot of deer have been killed by drives. There's no question about it. And we ate every single deer that we killed. But was that the same as sitting on the ridge and doing it one-on-one? So, heck, if somebody wants to drive some deer today, they even drive elk now in Colorado, which I think is nuts. And because of just the land mass.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, how does that work? But there's guys that are pretty good at it, but they know where the elk are going to go. And so they slowly drift through the woods, still hunting, and they push them to a saddle or to some topographical feature that the elk have to move around or do something, and that's where the people standing are waiting. But enough of that. So you get Dan Infalt. Who else has been instrumental in your whitetail life?
Well, Dan has been the biggest. I've kind of adopted his style of hunting. It's a lot of hard work, but Curtis Zabel from Behind the Bow, I really enjoy his stuff. He's a hard worker and a young guy. And then the guys from the hunting public too are some guys that I really look up to. They're sharing a lot of good stuff all the time, and they're really bright. They know a lot of stuff. They're pretty young guys as well, and it's pretty amazing how much knowledge those guys can pack into a short amount of time on a YouTube video.
Let's switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to ask you a question about what you put in your pack, what you carry to the tree stand every time you go out, not just sometimes, but every time you head to the tree stand. What's in your day pack?
Well, this is going to be kind of disappointing. I really don't bring anything besides my camera gear and my release aid. That's almost it. A lot of times I won't even bring binoculars with if I'm in pretty tight quarters. I know a lot of people think that's crazy, but when I was a kid, we didn't have money to get decent optics, so I never grew up using glass, and I find myself a lot of times not want to carry that extra weight. In the rut, I'll have a grunt tube with and maybe rattling antlers, but I don't like bringing that stuff with. A lot of times I think you're just going to end up getting deer downwind of you, and if they don't have that visual, they're going to try and get downwind. And if that happens, it's going to kind of blow the whole sit. So I don't like to call a whole lot.
So, all day sits. So I'm in there by, an hour before dawn. So it's 6 o'clock, and I'm out. It's 4 o'clock. It's dark, so I'm out of there, sometime after 4. So I don't know, 6 hours, almost 10 hours. So I have a thermos that's heavy. I have my grunt tube, and I have my antlers. I have my camera. I have my rain jacket, just rain jacket, because some of my camo isn't Gore-Tex. Then I get Tootsie Bars or candy bars. Let's see what else. Then I have rope. Then I have my knives. Then I have my binoculars. What else do I have? I got my bow. Apple. Did I say peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Not yet.
I'm in there all day, dude.
Right. Well, and the food thing is, if you're going to make that all day sit, you got to bring something. And
water. And then I have my Camelback.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say too. If you're going to make an all day sit, obviously I would bring some of that kind of stuff with too. To go back to the knife thing, I was probably 13 years old, 14 maybe, and I read, I think it was in Field and Stream, an article about how the best way to kill a big buck is to never bring a knife with. And it's something that I've lived by from that point on for some reason is I always think if you're too prepared, nothing's going to happen. So if you can short yourself on all the necessities, you're probably going to have better luck.
Oh, I forgot my cell phone and my selfie stick.
Yeah, that stuff got to come with too. That helps pass the time on them all day sits too.
Well, yeah, and I'm not talking about popping in, popping out, knowing that I'm going to be out of the stand. If I'm going to be out of the stand, almost nothing goes in with me. I mean, depending on the time of year, my horns, my grunt tube and rattling horns will go with me. But I don't have a lot of stuff. It's just an in and out. And from what I've been hearing from a lot of people, I'm going to do more run and gun this fall. And I'm going to start off on ridges where I can see down into and where the deer don't go on the top of the ridge, they go on one side or the other depending on the wind. And so I'm going to be watching where these deer are going, and then I'm going to go in, set up, and I'm going to be hunting from the ground because I can't hunt hang-ons. And so I'm going to be hunting from the ground and give myself 2 days. 3 days at most at one position. If there's nothing there, then I'm going to switch up spots. So I'm going to really, move around rather than, this is my go-to stand during the rut, and I'm going to sit there for 10 days straight. I ain't going to do it. And people do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get caught up in that past success kind of rut, actually, where a spot's been good in the past, and you go there over and over and over, and you just burn it up. I got caught doing it. And I don't think you realize you're doing it until it's been a long time of doing the same thing over and over and over. That's part of the reason why I started hunting public land a little bit more. We're not allowed to leave stands up here. So you're packing in, packing out every night, and it makes it pretty easy to go sit in a completely different area when everything's on your back to start with. And you're judging everything off by the wind. And I usually have a small plan in place, but no exact spot till I kind of start making my way through the woods and set up on what looks like some hot sign, or you run into something that you can't go past.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the only way you get in your mind that you hit a spot you can't go past is just time in the woods, folks. You can watch all the videos you want, but when you see what you want, not somebody else, just what you want, that's where you have to set up. Because if you pass it, going to daunt you for the rest of the hunt going, oh, I should have been there because I knew he was going to walk by there. Because you go back and you check it and there's a print in the ground. You're going, oh, why did I do that? Why did I doubt myself? Your thoughts?
Right. And if especially hunting on public land, if you're in there the first time, if you go past something, you almost have to continue on until you find something else you want to hunt. Because if you walk past something 50, 60, 70 yards, you laid that scent down already. And if you back up and hang, a deer might walk out of range, smell where you had walked, and it's not going to keep coming down your way. So if you pass something, you might as well keep going until you find something that's good to hunt that you haven't walked past yet. At least that's my opinion.
Now, how the heck do you go into public land in the dark and set up looking for rubs and scrapes and rub lines and beds and all this stuff? How do you find them in the dark without, banging your flashlight all around? I mean, I don't know how you do that.
Well, in my morning sets, I like to sit at home or on one of the farms that I have permission on, just because I'm so much more familiar with them. I haven't set up on public land in the morning just because of that. It's a lot tougher to see. You don't know that place like the back of your hand. At least I don't, not yet. Maybe once I get more familiar with a lot of those spots, then I'll start venturing out in the morning. But being quiet is the key, especially if you're trying to hunt a deer that's been hunted before, maybe shot before, and lived through it. They're not gonna tolerate any metallic noises or a lot of flashlight shining and that kind of thing. They're gonna get up and move. And so I try just stick to my home farm and the other farm that I have permission to hunt on when I'm going to go out in the morning. That way I can be a little bit more stealthy, a little bit more quiet, and try to catch them on the way back from food to bed.
And then, so I can read from that. So when you go out to public land to set up, do you go at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock? What's your game plan?
A lot of it has to do with what I got going on that day. I've left as early as noon for an evening sit and as late as 3. Depending on if I don't feel like I have a long walk, if it's a spot that I feel is good that's pretty close to the parking lot or the truck, then obviously I'll push that to a little bit later. But I would say a lot of times I'm leaving between noon and 1:30 for a sit that is going to end at about 6.
And then if you've never been on a piece of public land before, how the heck do you park at the parking lot along the street? Because we know that from the parking lot there's trails, there's people trails into the swamp, and it takes a while, quarter mile or more, before those trails sort of dissipate. They start to break off. But the initial, I mean, it's a cow path. If it isn't a swamp, it's a swamp. It still is a cow path, except it's a wet one.
Right. No, I park at the parking lot, or I'll dump in off the side of the road if I feel like there's a spot where I need to get to that's too far to get to from the parking lot. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, you're parking at a DIY, and you're gonna just dump off the road, go in the ditch, and head into your spot. So, how do you figure the spots? How do you know when you go to public land where you're going to, where you're going to initially start looking for a setup?
Well, I'll always have an idea just from looking on the computer. I get on Google Earth or something similar, and I'll pick a spot, a tentative spot out off of off of an online map. I'll park at the parking lot or off on the side of the road somewhere if the parking lot's not very close, and then I'll start to kind of hunt my way in, take my time, and if I run into something before I get there that I feel like I need to hunt, then I'll hang there. Otherwise, I'll try and get to that spot that I had established as what I felt like a good spot to be in at home.
So you don't know if it's going to take an hour and a half to get to your spot, or how do you gauge? Because if it is a swamp, I mean, swamps can mess you up just by the depth of the water.
Right. Well, you can get a good idea of what you feel like you're going to have to walk through. If I feel like I have to go a half a mile or 3/4 of a mile, I'll make that first half of that trip as fast as I can. I mean, not at a run or anything, but I won't mind making any noise getting in there because it's going to be that last couple hundred yards that you really need to be stealthy at. So if I don't think that there's going to be anything worth hunting within that first half mile, I'll just get through there as quick as I can. So I'm not spending a lot of, maybe 5-10 minutes getting in that first half mile. And from that point, then once I feel like I'm past or into a spot that might hold some deer, then I'll start to really slow down at that point.
Interesting. Now, with your techniques, how successful have you been? Do you kill a buck every year, every 2 years?
No, and I just started to hunt public land, so it's last year I struggled. Last year I wasn't aggressive enough. You had asked me last time if I had bumped any deer last year, and that's why I felt I wasn't aggressive enough, because I was listening to Dan on a podcast earlier this week, and that was one of the things he said. He's like, if you're not occasionally bumping deer, you're not pushing the envelope far enough. So last year I struggled a little bit doing that. And I started to get a little bit more selective. I haven't killed a buck for quite a while now. My standards might drop a little bit this year just because I'm starting to get that itch to put something down again. But it's something that I feel like with the amount of scouting that I put in this year and that I will in the upcoming years, I would like to think that I'd be able to put down a nice buck on public land every other year. That's a good goal, I think. I think every year is unrealistic, especially on public ground. In a pressured state like Minnesota or Wisconsin. I mean, it's nice to have high goals, but you don't want to be disappointed at the end of the day either.
Yeah, it's a chest match. I know we talked about that. So winding up here, what do you want to leave the listeners with about Whitetail Underground? Just one more thing about Whitetail Underground, and we're going to close up the show.
I just like to point out that I don't feel like I'm an expert. I feel like I have some knowledge in a few different areas, and it's just me being myself. I'm not trying to push any products on anybody. I'm not sponsored by anyone. You're not going to get a lot of infomercial type stuff from me. If I use something, it's because I believe in it, and I'm not trying to push anything on anybody. I hunt the way I hunt. Everybody's got to kind of find their own style, and at the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun. And if we're not having fun, we got to change something. It's hunting. It should be done with your family and your friends, and we're making stories. So if at the end of the day you're not having fun, it's time to change something up. Change your style. Maybe not put so much pressure on yourself. And I'm always just trying to keep learning. And if I learn something, I'll share it, and hopefully we can interact with each other and grow together.
One more time, how people get in touch with you on social media.
You can find me on Facebook. Just search Whitetail Underground. I have a YouTube page at Whitetail Underground Productions. And then I'm on Instagram, Whitetail _ Underground. And that's where I'm at. I have a Twitter account, but I'm not on there much. It seems like everybody's on either Facebook or Instagram in the hunting community more often. So that's the two that I'm on the most often.
And with that, Eli, thanks so much for joining Whitetail Rendezvous one more time. And I can't wait till we, get together during the hunting season or right after and find out how the year went. So on behalf of thousands of listeners, almost 250,000 listeners of Whitetail Rendezvous, you've been a great guest, and I appreciate who you are.
Well, I'm glad I was able to be on again, Bruce, and appreciate the platform you have, and the people that you have on here are knowledgeable, and it's pretty easy to learn a few things each time you listen.
Next up on Whitetail Rendezvous podcast will be Casey and Hope Hutchinson. And everybody on the internet, social media knows them as Hutch Has a Little Hope. And what a couple they are. I'm every time I see them, I just smile, and they love each other so much, and they love to hunt, and they go out to Kansas to the family farm and shoot some does and bring home meat and teaching their kids to hunt, and the responsibility of hunting. Bad grades, eat your tag. That might sound hard, but that's how they live. And it just Casey works for Wildlands, so forest fighter, and just an unbelievable couple that they're creeping up the radar. And I don't know, and we'll talk about it on the podcast, if that's really important to them, because they're just, they're what we all hope to be. They're great mentors, great coaches, great examples of a hunting couple. So I couldn't be more proud to have Hutch Has a Little Hope on the show up next.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.